I think that when you're diagnosed with cancer, just like, especially in the beginning stages, it's just like every dream that you've ever had feels like completely flimsy and fragile. And I felt like I had to redefine what I thought a good life might look like because I was on a path to, get married and have kids. And I was pretty terrified that that just like wouldn't be the case anymore. I'm Alexis. I live in San Francisco, originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I've been in San Francisco for 10 years. I was diagnosed when I was 29 with stage 3 neuroendocrine tumor of the lung, July of 2022. Definitely the most traumatic experience I've ever been through. Definitely also just learned more about myself and have a new gratitude for the world around me, but traumatic. It was sort of an incidental find, but in retrospect, I realized I had a lot of symptoms. I was having shortness of breath. So it sort of was like for years, for a long time, and way back, even when I was like in college, but I kind of question if that was at all related. But I had a slower growing kind of cancer, so it could have been. But in the like 2020 through when I was diagnosed, I was definitely like noticing when I would have caffeine or was like more anxious, I was having to like kind of take a really like deep breath. Like I needed to yawn more to like get enough air. But I thought it was anxiety and I didn't think much of it. And I was kind of, it wasn't getting like progressively worse or anything. And I didn't have any other symptoms. So I didn't think too much of it. But I knew my dad was diagnosed with, he was actually misdiagnosed with a heart condition that's genetic. So I kind of wondered if maybe I had that. So I wanted to get that looked at, and I wasn't very concerned because he's in his 80s. And so I was like, if I do have it, like it's probably manageable, but maybe I'll check that out. But like I said, symptoms were coming and going, so I wasn't like super alerted to anything. And then when we had the echocardiogram is when they found like an abnormality, but they couldn't see it clearly. And then they did a follow-up CT, and then that's when they saw like enlarged lymph nodes in my chest. And initially, the radiologist didn't note anything in my lung. So I, again, wasn't super, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was. And my doctor kind of was like, oh, you don't have any scary symptoms like of cancer. So it's probably not, but it could be. And then she kind of messed up the referral process. So it took a lot longer than it should have. But eventually, when I saw a pulmonologist at UCSF, they were like, no, there is a spot on your lung, and I think we should biopsy it. The other thing about my story is that I have the BRCA2 gene, which I knew about. I knew I had it since 2019. And I'd been getting scanned regularly for that. So I was sort of alerted to like maybe having breasts or ovarian cancer for that period of time. I'd been prepared for that. And the pulmonologist initially thought because of my age that it could have been a breast or ovarian cancer that spread to my lung. But he wasn't sure. I didn't think it was that because I was so diligent about the follow-ups that I just kind of I didn't think that was a possibility, and it wasn't true anyway. Um, I kind of thought it was much more likely I had the common kind of lung cancer, and that's like the one that's been on the rise for young women. And I'm like, I'm a never smoker. I'm a young woman. I fit this profile. I probably have like non-small cell lung cancer. Like that's just what I assumed. But we did the biopsy, and he asked me that day, he was like, if we'll know if it's cancer or not, we just won't know what kind it is. Do you want to know if it's cancer or not, despite not having the information? And I said, yes, I do. And so when I woke up, he told me it looks like it is cancer and it might be a lymphoma. We're not sure. So then it took about a week, and he called me and he told me it was a carcinoid, is what they like officially call it. If people Google, it would be carcinoid, but I'm referring to it as neuroendocrine cancer because I think it's just a more accurate descriptor. Carcinoid kind of makes it sound like it's um, a slow growing thing, and neuroendocrine tumors is the category it falls into. But he told me I had a carcinoid of the lung, and that it had spread to lymph nodes, and that this was probably the best news I could get because he said you could. He said as long as it hasn't gone anywhere else, you could probably remove it with surgery. So I had known about carcinoids actually, like in my when I started to suspect I had cancer or just hearing about it randomly, I knew what carcinoids were. I knew they're usually in the digestive tract, but I knew that they made up like 1% of lung cancers. So, but I didn't think that was a possibility for me because they don't usually go to lymph nodes. And so, yeah, but then I found out that it was a carcinoid and I felt a lot of relief. Um, Initially, but then when I was Googling more, I learned that there's two types. There's like typical, which are the more slow growing, and then there's atypical, which are like grade two. And my biopsy said typical, but I was like, it's already in lymph nodes. It's probably not that. And then I just saw atypical had like worse outcomes. So I had like a lot of mixed emotions and a lot of anxiety in that waiting period. And then waiting for the PET scan was like probably the worst period of time for me. So since neuroendocrine tumors are very, very rare, there's not necessarily a one size fits all treatment plan. The mainstay tends to be surgery because usually they're not responsive to chemotherapy and surgery can be curative. In my first appointment, my doctor said it was like a 50 to 70% chance surgery would cure me, despite the lymph node involvement. After surgery, it was more like 50 to 60%, but based on the pathology. But that's a story for another day. So surgery is the mainstay, but she was saying that it was likely that they would have to remove my entire lung. And so there was this new pill form of chemotherapy that they said had a 30% chance of working based on studies, and that potentially could spare my lung. But after a lot of conversations with like how much reduction they needed, how likely it was to get that reduction in order to spare my lung, with like that would be less than a 30% chance it would have the success to spare my lung. I kind of asked, would this is this chemo regimen intended to like extend my life or just spare my lung? And they were like, it's mostly to just see if we can spare your lung. So I said no to it initially. And I was like, I just want to get surgery. It's a centrally located tumor and there was lymph node involvement. I lost my whole left lung. And I think that the recovery from surgery was like the most pain I've ever been in my entire life, for sure. But I was only in the hospital for like 3 days. And then I was home and I just remember feeling like really like lethargic and kind of nauseous. And but the thing I noticed was that my breathing was better, which kind of made me realize that I'd been having symptoms like I didn't even realize I had. So that was interesting. And so then after pathology came back, they were like, yeah, it's not a typical carcinoid. It's atypical. It's like right on the edge. It was like as on the edge as you could possibly be between those two categories. And so my doctor said if it had been typical, we wouldn't offer you any other follow up treatment, even in stage three. That's it. Because we don't think there's any use for it. But because it's on the edge, you have the option to do chemo, and you could either do IV chemotherapy or pill chemotherapy. And after a lot of discussions, it seemed like it made more sense to do pill because data showed for like more slow growing that it seemed like it was more effective. But there's mixed data and not a lot of data. So it was sort of like a shot into the dark of if this mattered at all or did anything. But it was 4 months of chemo, either way. But yeah, with so I opted for the pill, which was like you do 2 weeks on the pills and then 2 weeks off. And yeah, and I had a pretty easy time with it overall. I don't think I got many side effects. The first round, I was definitely nauseous at times, but I didn't throw up. It was managed with a lot of pills they gave me. And I could see towards the end of the cycle in retrospect that I was pretty tired. But I didn't really have that difficult of a time with it. And then after the first round, when I like told her that I was struggling with nausea, they just gave me more pills. And so that was pretty well managed from there on out. Um, I think the thing that was the hardest was just like the adjustment to my social life. Like when I was immunocompromised, that is like more anxiety inducing. I had my first scan midway through the chemo pill cycle. And that was just a chest CT, and that was clear, which was great news. And then my oncologist said that we would do another CT in like 3 months later, and then also do like a liver MRI because that's part of the follow up care for carcinoids is that it tends to go to the liver first. So getting this like very sensitive liver MRI scan and scan of the whole abdomen and pelvis. But so that's what I did, and that was clear, and that was amazing news. And then my doctor said that it's great that it's clear, but she wanted to do something 3 months out from chemo, just in case chemo was like holding anything back. So really, the good news came when it was 3 months after that, and those scans were clear. Then she said we could have scans at larger intervals, and that was really fantastic news. So she called it no evidence of disease is what I've been. So
Okay, last
It's
round.
time. Woo! All
For
done.
real this time. 4 rounds. Done.
I think that when you're diagnosed with cancer, just like, especially in the beginning stages, it's just like every dream that you've ever had feels like completely flimsy and fragile. And I felt like I had to redefine what I thought a good life might look like because I was on a path to, get married and have kids. And I was pretty terrified that that just like wouldn't be the case anymore. Not only that, but just like I'm someone that loves walking. Like I'm a huge walker and I like to bake and I like to say yes to all these plans with friends. And I think I just realized that like so much of my identity and life plan was just very, very flimsy. And I think that was really difficult to cope with, but also kind of rewarding because I think I kind of realized how motivated I am to experience joy and like enjoy life no matter what the circumstances. So I had to kind of regroup and figure out like, okay, what does that look like no matter what for me? And I had just met my now husband 5 months in before the diagnosis. So I was really, really terrified about that. And yeah, just like where's my life going to go? And I think that like that's still the thing I struggle with a lot because I'm gonna get scanned for 10 years. And my doctor has kind of been reassuring, which was like, this is a slower growing cancer, even if you do get to a state where it's incurable, like people manage it, but it's just like, if you're in it's like nothing is ever really certain again. But I try to think to myself, I've always been an anxious person and I can't ever remember a time where I was just like, yeah, my life's figured out and I like am enjoying it and I'm relaxed. So I'm like trying to kind of cope with it thinking, oh, like no matter what, you would probably be anxious and worried about the future. But it definitely like it puts a big damper on things that you think are guaranteed are now no longer guaranteed, or like things you just really don't expect to have to wonder about. I think I was surprised at how people showed up. It was really interesting because I had like all these friends that I made from when I was in college that were like these. I went to like a very STEM focused engineering school, and like a bunch of these people were like these, like I don't know, um, just guys that I had like a very like chill, like I would say sort of surface level relationship with. Not that like it wasn't deep, but like we didn't really talk about like emotions or feelings or anything like that. It was just more like fun and like enjoying the same kind of hobbies. And I was like really amazed at how much empathy and care these people showed me because it wasn't something like I necessarily expected. Like some people that I'm just like I saw in this one type of way where like coming over and like spending the whole day with me and like taking out my trash and like cooking me meals and checking in on me like every couple of weeks, even if we didn't live in the same city. And I didn't expect that from them. And like most people responded well. It wasn't universally well. I think there were some people that responded a lot worse than I was expecting too. But like that was only like one or two people. So it was just, that was really surprising. And then I think with my partner, just like I just met this person on the internet, and like he like organized my whole care schedule. He was cooking me meals almost every single day, just really attentive to my needs and really like showing up in this way that was incredible. And I think that there's a stereotype that's unfortunately accurate a lot of the times because of society, of like men not being good in this caregiver role, or like not knowing what to do when a woman is sick. But I found like in my community, at least, that was just really not true. Like, and I was really grateful to see that. I was like, men can really step up and be excellent caregivers. And so, yeah, just sending that message out into the void too. I felt invincible. I was like always someone that was a hypochondriac. So people that know me might be like, you never felt invincible. You were always worried that you had something wrong with you, which is true. I did. But I think I didn't realize that like I never really thought that like deep down. I thought I was invincible. I would get anxious about certain things, but I think it was almost just like I was anxious about it because it was threatening this idea that I was invincible. And like I didn't think anything like this could happen to me. It was really shocking. And like I think it just completely changed how I look at myself, and like maybe people around me too, that just like we're all incredibly vulnerable, and we're all sort of like just like in this temporary state of health, no matter who we are. Because just like you either, like if you live long enough, like something will happen, and multiple things could happen. And I don't think I thought I don't think I really grasped that before.
All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Last round. Let's go.
Wow, taking chemo off the floor.
Life is not predictable, and things might not be okay or go the way that you want it to, but you are who you are at your core, no matter what your circumstances, and no matter what you're capable of doing, and no matter how your life changes. And the most important thing is the love you have around you and the people you have around you, and like knowing who you are at your core will help you through most things, because when you know who you are at your core, you're able to feel fulfilled even in dark circumstances. And no one's guaranteed anything in life, but we only get this one chance. It's good to try to make the most of it.